Welcome back to the deep dive. So, have you ever stopped to think about how much of, well, everything we perceive is shaped by big, overarching stories, grand narratives?
It's a fundamental question, really. And what happens when those narratives, those foundational stories start to, well, unravel?
Exactly. And today we're diving deep into a particular YouTube source that has a, let's say, unique and pretty provocative take on that. It calls it the collapse of a bad narrative.
A narradigm, right. So like a paradigm, but specifically about the dominant narratives or belief systems that shape how we see reality.
Precisely. And this source, it doesn't just ask the question. It lays out this incredibly detailed, though highly speculative answer about what it thinks is happening right now.
It weaves together economics, politics, even spiritual claims. It's trying to build this comprehensive picture of, well, control, and what it sees as an imminent, huge revelation.
And just to be clear up front, our mission here isn't to endorse any of this. Not at all. We're just guides today.
Right. We're here to help you navigate these claims, which are often, pretty dense, sometimes controversial. Understand the pieces, consider the implications.
Think of it like we're exploring an alternative map of the world, just laying out what's on that map.
Okay. So where does this map begin?
Well, the source paints this picture of huge global shifts. It suggests we're on the cusp of a great awakening. And this is supposedly driven by the breakdown of systems and beliefs we've held for a long time.
And it starts this whole narrative with a specific interpretation of the American empire.
It does. The source claims America was never supposed to have an empire, that its current global reach, across continents causing problems, that's a major deviation.
A deviation from an original, more isolationist path that mentions the 1776 rebellion against monarchy, doesn't it?
Yeah, implying the U.S. was meant to be unto ourselves, not tangled up in foreign entanglement.
Okay, so this alleged deviation, where does the source claim it came from? What's driving it, according to them?
This is where it gets really specific. The source asserts this expansion, this empire, is propelled by Zionism at the behest of the Khazarian Mafia.
Right. Now, Zionism is typically understood as the movement for Jewish self-determination and statehood. How does the source define it?
Very differently. It claims Zionism is a concept positioning Jews as chosen people, but, and this is a direct quote from the source, not by God, but by space aliens.
Space aliens, okay.
And it claims the creation of Israel was driven by this redefined Zionism. It even says there were no Jews in the Middle East prior to the installation of Israel, but that Jews were always out of the Khazaria.
Wow. Okay, so that's a significant rewriting of history right there. It's constructing this idea of an ancient, unseen antagonist, the Khazarian Mafia, linked to space aliens and attributing major historical events to their agenda.
Exactly. It uses these claims to build its foundation, this theory of a long-standing orchestrated control system.
Which naturally leads to the question, how does the source claim this control was actually set up and kept going? Because it gets into some really detailed and, frankly, controversial territory about the Khazarian Mafia and Judaism itself.
Extremely detailed. It presents this very specific origin story. It claims, quote, Judaism is a crafted structure around the story of the space aliens taking over these 12 tribes of Essenes in Yemen and driving them up along the Red Sea to what we now call Judea.
So it's alleging a lineage of control going back centuries, linked to extraterrestrials, creating a system disguised, apparently, as Judaism.
That's the claim. And it goes further. It makes the really controversial assertion that less than 1% of people claiming to be Jewish have any genetic connection to the people in the Bible.
Less than 1%.
And that 99% don't read Hebrew, so they rely on rabbis who, the source alleges, deliberately mistranslate the Torah.
Deliberately. What examples does it give?
It claims, for instance, that El, or Elohim, gets translated as God when it supposedly means space aliens, or that Raal, meaning the Holy Spirit, actually refers to something that, quote, smokes and flames, shoots flames out of its ass in order to fly.
Okay, so the source isn't just claiming translation errors, but intentional misdirection to hide these supposed origins. And how does it view the role of rabbis within this structure?
It contends they function more like judges, enforcers, social organizers, rather than spiritual guides, all supporting what it calls the Khazarian Mafia's rabbinical structure.
And it mentions the Talmud, too, right? Which is central in traditional Judaism.
Yes, claiming it's used as the primary text over the Torah for most within this alleged structure. It even brings up a group called the Zivites from the 13th to 16th centuries.
The Zivites? What's the claim there?
They allegedly had this whole idea that they could ascend to God through sin. The source connects this directly to Satan worship.
Is building a very complex picture of alleged historical and religious deception.
And it gets darker. The source posits that the entire Jewish community is essentially used as a sacrificial cloak for this Khazarian Mafia.
A sacrificial cloak. And what's the ultimate goal of all this alleged maneuvering, according to the source?
A one-world government. It says things like the UN are strictly a Zionist structure to try and take over and maneuver the whole world into their one-world government.
And it attributes this vision to specific figures and groups.
Yeah, it mentions Albert Pike, various Chabbats, and other organizations, all supposedly under the Khazarian Mafia wrapper, which is the Jewish community. It also explicitly ties this to Agenda 2030.
Right. Agenda 2030, the UN's Sustainable Development Framework, being reframed here as part of this alleged global takeover plot. It's a very sweeping conspiracy narrative.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So if that's the alleged goal, how does the source claim this huge complex system is actually funded and maintained day to day? It mentions money, right?
Yes, fake money. That's a crucial piece for the source. This link between currency and control is pretty common in these kinds of alternative theories.
So fake money, meaning fiat currency.
Exactly. Fiat currency, with no cost to its creation and distribution. The source claims that this has been the key tool for the Khazarians for the past 100 years.
How so?
It allows them to bribe people, essentially. If money costs nothing to create, you can distribute it strategically to influence people, maintain power structures, keep control. That's the premise.
But the system, this reliance on fiat currency, it's not stable, according to the source.
Not at all. It predicts an imminent collapse, a breakdown of the Bretton Woods system. That's Bretton Woods, the post-WWII monetary system.
Right from the 1940s.
The Federal Reserve, which goes back to 1913, and ultimately the dollar itself.
And it sees this not as a sudden crash, but more like a slow burn.
Yeah, it describes it as a drip, 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 drip business that eventually leads to a flood of all the corruption being exposed.
Okay, so the dollar collapses.
Yeah.
What does the source predict happens then? What are the consequences?
Pretty dramatic ones. It claims the U.S. will suddenly stop funding the UN and also what it calls batshit NGOs.
And it has a specific take on those NGOs.
Oh, yes. It claims they are communist and out trying to ferment communist Zionist takeover. It also explicitly states that communism is a Zionist plot created by Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels.
Wow. Okay. What else?
It predicts the end of U.S. aid, describing that as a communist organization that tries to subvert the governments of South America.
So, major geopolitical shifts driven by the financial collapse. What about the impact closer to home, on government itself?
The source suggests that government workers will just walk away, abandon their posts because there's no meaningful pay anymore.
And the effect of that?
Massive exposure, big chunks of government suddenly laid bare because there's nobody in place to cover shit up anymore.
So, for the listener, the source is saying this isn't just an economic crisis. It's the financial key that unlocks everything. It exposes alleged generations of corruption because suddenly, quote, everybody doesn't get bribed anymore.
Exactly. And this financial breakdown, this exposure, leads directly into the source's idea of the apocalypse. But maybe not apocalypse in the way most people think of it.
Right. Not necessarily fire and brimstone, end of the world stuff.
No. The source explicitly reframes apocalypse as the revealing, or the Great Awakening. It's presented as the end of an illusionary Narradigm, one it claims the Khazarians maintain for over 5,000 years.
5,000 years. And this shift corresponds to astrological ages.
Yes, moving from the Age of Pisces into the Age of Aquarius. So it's framed as this huge, epical shift in consciousness triggered by the collapse of the old systems.
It's interesting because within this grand narrative, the source also takes time to address and sort of debunk from its perspective some other specific claims floating around out there.
It does. It's like an internal course correction almost, trying to keep the focus on its core message by clarifying what it sees as misunderstandings.
Like what? What does it try to clarify?
Well, for instance, it mentions people misinterpreting MC addresses apparently detected coming from graves.
ME addresses, like from electronic devices, from graves.
Yeah. The source says, no, that's not what's happening. It explains that since 2010, there have been counties in the U.S. that demand that all caskets that be put into the ground have an RFID tag.
For what purpose?
To prevent unmarked graves, apparently. Just a practical measure, according to the source, not something nefarious.
Okay. What else does it address?
It tackles the idea of graphene oxide forming into chips inside the blood, a claim you sometimes hear in certain circles.
And the source says?
It says, quote, as near as I can tell, that is not happening. It suggests that what people are seeing as sharp-edged structures within blood are actually just proteins and salts crystallizing naturally when blood is exposed to oxygen, not chip formation.
So it clarifies those points, pushing back against those specific ideas.
Right. But then it makes its own pretty startling prediction about impending revelations, specifically regarding certain medical responses.
Ah, yes. This is where it really doubles down on that great revealing concept, isn't it? Tying it back to the financial collapse.
Exactly. It predicts that by June, presumably of the year, the source material was created because the financial systems and bribery networks are breaking down.
The truth will come out.
Yes. It claims it will become clear, even coming into some mainstream media, that certain major medical responses we've seen was not a response to a disease, but rather was designed to depopulate deliberately with no attempt to have any good stuff in it at all.
That's a very extreme claim.
Yeah.
That the whole thing was intentionally harmful.
It's a core part of the source's revealing narrative, that once the money stops flowing, the truth about things like this will emerge for everyone, for the normies, as the source puts it.
And this unraveling, this revealing,
Yeah.
the source believes it will force a kind of mental shift in people.
Yes, it talks about a mind rebuilding process for many. It specifically singles out people. It identifies using a very offensive term for LGBTQ plus individuals and others, claiming they've been schooled to the point where they're insane. It's a stark reminder of how these narratives, however controversial or offensive, attempt to frame societal changes in individual psychology.
So, to sort of pull it all together, this deep dive has shown us a source that paints this incredibly dramatic picture. You've got the American Empire deviating, this alleged Khazarian Mafia with ancient roots, the collapse of fake money as the trigger.
Leading to an apocalypse that's actually a great awakening, a massive revealing of truth, the end of a 5,000-year illusion, and a transition into the Age of Aquarius. It's quite the narrative.
It really is. And exploring material like this, even when it's this speculative, this provocative, it's not about agreeing with it, is it?
Not at all. It's about flexing those critical thinking muscles, seeing how narratives are constructed, what rhetorical tools are used. It helps you understand the sheer diversity of worldviews out there.
It's about being informed about the kinds of ideas circulating, even the really unconventional ones, and considering them critically.
Exactly. It's part of understanding the landscape of belief in the world today.
So maybe a final thought for you to ponder as you process all this.
Mm-hmm.
As you consider this source's claims about a world built on illusion, heading towards this dramatic revealing, ask yourself, how much of what we accept as reality, day to day, is built on narratives? And what could happen if just one of those core narratives really did start to unravel?